So, Francois, story time.
All right. One day we were at a church and we had to tell a story about our lives. And I went and I put on scuba diving, all my scuba diving equipment. And I walked into the hall where we had the seminar, and I said, well, but I had all the snorkel on and the whole BC and a wetsuit and my flippers and my bottle with my BC and everything. And I walked in and I said, well, now I want to talk about skydiving. And for about 10 minutes, the class still I had to wait until the class got quiet from laughing so much. And then I spoke about skydiving and a wonderful adrenaline rush and the way that it makes you feel alive, and the 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 how scared you are at first in the airplane for the first time, and how wonderful it feels at the end when you once you go through the free falling and once you land.
Cool. Is that it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that was a round of applause. So I'm going to do something horrible to myself, if you guys are happy for this. I'm going to try and retell Francois' story. Now, you have to remember, I wasn't there myself. So I might for sure forget some things, and I for sure might mess some things up. But as I retell this story and do my best effort, it's not going to be perfect. Write down what are things that I do differently in terms of the actual techniques that I use so that I paint this picture. Remember, when we tell a good story, what did I say right at the start? Does anyone remember with the VR headset? Telling a fantastic story is like putting on a VR headset for the listener. Exactly. So as I tell the story, ask yourself, is this guy, this random guy that's joined our call today, is he putting this, yes, is he putting this headset on for me? Or is he keeping it off? So, right, just give me a second. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to tell you a story about when I was asked to actually preach at my church. And what happened will actually really surprise you because I took this in a completely different and a completely unexpected way. So it was on a Sunday session or Sunday sermon, and this is in South Africa, actually on the outskirts of Cape Town. And so I'm going to my normal church. And what's funny though is I wasn't wearing my typical gear. Does anyone want to guess what I was actually wearing on this lovely sunny day? I was actually wearing scuba gear because I thought this scuba gear will be fantastic in terms of me being able to tell my own story. But just to hook you in even more, that story wasn't actually about scuba diving. So I walked into the church, everyone was stood there, but baffled, just in awe, thinking, what's Piero doing today? Why is he in scuba gear? They're all scratching their heads, and you could hear a pin drop with how quiet it was in there. Because everyone was just confused. They're literally just in awe. But then one person broke the silence with laughter, and then a second, and then all of a sudden everyone was laughing, and we're all laughing together because they're thinking, what's this crazy person doing? Why is he talking about, like, why is he wearing scuba gear? I thought it was just a normal sermon. And then what I did actually was even worse, or even more surprising, because I decided to tell my story, and my story wasn't about scuba diving at all. What my story was actually about was skydiving. Because a week before, I decided to go skydiving on a whim. Now, I have actually never been skydiving up until that point, but I went up in this airplane. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are scared flyers, but whenever I go flying, I get this terrifying feeling in my stomach. And as we're going up 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 feet, I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't be jumping out of this. And I'm looking outside, the wind's rushing in, and there's just the deafening roar of these two engines because you're in this little propeller plane. It's not like the comfy Emirates flight seats that I normally take. And all of a sudden, the guy opens the door and it's a tandem jump. And I'm looking down and I feel like I'm staring above the heavens. I'm so high up. I've never been this high in my life. I'm terrified, actually shaking physically. And I took a deep breath and I jumped. And it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I told this story at the sermon because what I wanted to tell people about is about being okay in taking that leap of faith. And it was such a fantastic story that I gave, dressed, looking ridiculously in scuba gear, that everyone said it was one of their favorite sessions ever. It was honestly one of the best days of my life. And it's funny because I didn't think I actually had a lesson in telling you guys this story, but I guess the lesson I want to share with you is I'd actually really recommend using a random outfit. If you can use a random outfit, but then tell a completely different story, you can really hook people's attention because as I was telling this amazing story, everyone was still scratching their heads thinking, wow, I've really learned something, but I'm still confused why he's wearing scuba gear. And everyone went home with a smile. So that was my story. Now, I wasn't there, right? But is it fair to say, without being cocky or arrogant, is it fair to say that that was the same story, but told in a better way? Yeah? So now over to you guys. Why? Because we want you, that's just a skill. I was not like this before, but I've developed a skill and you're all here so you can develop this skill. Oh, okay, people are texting. Sorry, I'm new to Zoom. I know. Lots of feeling. Thank you for the kind messages, by the way. Lizelle, do you want to pick on people? I'm just gonna get water.
Sure. What is the are we doing storytelling now?
Yeah, no, so the reason I told it back is not just for fun. It's actually quite annoying to do it myself. No, it was more so you guys can see the contrast. So you can see the exact same story, but arguably told in a more captivating way. So what specifically made it more captivating? And this is how we'll go into today's
Okay.
lesson.
Trish?
That was awesome. Thank you. So
Thank you.
the details that I got from your story compared to the previous story, that you were more detailed. So the funniness of the story was still there. So that was still like the thing. But you were more engaging, you asked questions. So the detail, yeah, you engaged with the story. You said, can you imagine how I must have felt? You also gave me a sense of like curiosity. Like, can you imagine what it must feel like to, go up in this airplane and your stomach goes into a knot? So that for me gave me feeling. So I got the feeling of like what you were experiencing, which goes into the next one of expression. So you expressed the feeling that you had, the experience that you had, and then you gave in some learning experiences. So you went into just a little bit of learning, giving a little bit of context about, skydiving and what it could feel like and whatever. And then towards the end, you almost gave like a feedback and a lesson learned. That's what I took from your story.
Yep. Does anyone else have other things to add?
Cormarie?
Sure. So one of the things that really stood out for me was how you kind of incorporated all the senses. There was the audible, the visual, all the feelings, as was mentioned, but getting a lot of those senses that came through as well was amazing. Made you feel like you're actually there experiencing it yourself.
We'll break these down step by step in a sec, by the way. That's why I'm writing it out. Can you see my screen?
Matilda?
You can, yeah.
I think it was brilliant.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I've got pretty much the same. I think there are little facts embedded, which I think those will be the ones remembered. And that falls in with the backdrop, the setting that you started with, because I think it pulls people in when they know where you are, what the surroundings are, and feeds the imagination. Suspense building up. Why are you walking into church with this outfit? Reason for the story, the lesson. We've got that, the takeaway, the lesson learned. And I think right at the end, also the humor that you brought into it just shows up as your personality. And that's something that draws people closer to you. Thank you.
One more,
Thank-
Stacey.
Thanks for that. I'm just trying to re-engage or reorganize this. Stacey?
So everyone's obviously said what I was going to say, but the points that I jotted down is that you gave details and you connected with us. So it wasn't just all about you. You said, I don't know about you guys. I don't know how you would feel if you were in in an airplane. So you made us feel like it was also how we feel, not just how you felt in the situation. And then you gave us a resolution. You told us why you actually wore the kit when you were preaching. So you gave us a conclusion, and yeah, that's what everyone's basically said as well. But for me, my main thing that I grabbed is that it wasn't just about you. You included us in it, and you said, I don't know how you guys would feel. You always kept on saying, guys. It wasn't just me when I went. So yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So what you guys can see my screen, right? Okay. What I want to do now, and this is when you get the notepads out, is we're going to try and break some of these things down so you can actually implement them into yourself, into your own storytelling ability, your own marketing to improve your lives. So we'll start from the top. In terms of setting the setting, now remember, actually, I'll ask this. Who here, and you can put the hand up thing, who here actually felt like they were doing a kind of mini VR? I've only done VR myself once in my life. But your imagination was really taken away. Now, it's very hard to take someone's imagination away if I don't actually set the setting properly at the start. If I don't set the setting properly at the start, what happens is your audience is left in a state of confusion. Confusion raises cortisol in a bad way. We can raise it in a good way, but it raises it in a bad way, which leaves our audience just from the get-go scratching their heads thinking, what is going on? I'm a bit confused. And we don't want that. So, does anyone have a favorite color? I'll just do orange. How do we set the setting? Honestly, pretty simple. Who, what, when, why, how. The typical things. Now, if we want to go a step deeper, we can do it in the following way. What I'd actually really, really recommend is starting with the big picture and then zooming in. How did I do that? I spoke about, and like, I've never been to South Africa. I'm coming in January, but I've never been before. So I'm just guessing. But I was like, I think I said South Africa. Then I said outskirts of Cape Town. And then I think I said it was sunny at some point. Now, I've started like, literally say the country. Where in the country, if you can. Now, if it was, now this is like a slightly different thing and it will touch on the relatability. Whenever you tell a story, you need to remember who you're actually talking to, because you want to make it as relatable as possible to your audience. Now, my understanding is that a lot of you guys are from South Africa, which is why I said the edge of Cape Town. I don't actually know where the edge of Cape Town is. That's why I said it, because it's going to sound more relatable. Some of you guys might actually live on the edge of Cape Town and you might be thinking, oh, that might be my church, right? Now, if I was telling that story to my friend in London, I wouldn't say the edge of Cape Town. I'd leave it out. I might just say Cape Town. These are little things, but implemented, they all stack up. You want to make it as relatable as possible to your audience. So for certain things, like that's just like the where, for example. I didn't actually put where. That was what I meant to add. Silly me. What, when, how, did I add? Anyway. Yes. So with the where, we want to even make that relatable. Every single part of your story, try and make it as relatable as possible to the person. I'm sure this is marketing 101. People, like, they care. Who does everyone care about themselves? Ultimately, wow, gave it away. People care about themselves. So if you can make your story relatable to the person, they're going to feel more engaged, which is also why I ask constantly different engaging questions. You can write this down. Use phrases such as, you know that feeling when, you know how. This is actually like old school NLP, but it's basically you're telling people to do a certain thing, which is you're telling people to feel a certain emotion, which puts the goggles on further. I'm telling you, you know that feeling. In me telling that in like a question format, even though it's not an actual question, you're then re-experiencing that feeling to a certain extent. One sec. Sorry. So yeah, I'm unmuted. If you can, if you're with other people, say who you're with. If no one knows who those people are, just say friends. You don't have to list out all of their features. If they have distinct features, talk about them, right? What, when, why, how, where. I'll leave that bit for now because I'm aware of time as well. So in terms of the detail, and I don't actually like how I've done this. I'll do this. I'm gonna put some of these things together. Before I do this detail, what I did right at the story, and I can't even remember how I did it or what I said, is I hooked you guys in, right? Do you know how boring would a story be if you knew exactly, like, does anyone go to the cinema? Why do we hate being spoiled? Or like, why do we hate like someone telling us what the story or like what happens at the end of a film? Because it gets rid of the whole fun. We love the build-up, we love the suspense. That's where the fun is. We love the tension building, and then we want the release of the tension. If we don't actually do that, if we don't actually build any tension, so people normally mess up because either they build no tension by not actually hooking people in, or they build the tension that instantly release it. So, for example, if I said, yeah, it was funny because I walked in and I was wearing this scuba suit, even though I was talking about skydiving. That ruins the tension there. Now, you guys heard the story like 2 minutes before, but you still were probably thinking, oh my God, what's he gonna do? It's the same story. But what I did is I built the tension because I asked questions to the audience. You can say things like, you'll never guess what. You'll never guess why. And now you're scratching your head and you're thinking, why is he wearing this suit? And because I don't give it to you straight away, it really builds it up.